A proverb nowadays is understood to reflect a short popular saying that expresses effectively some commonplace truth or a useful thought. A stitch in time saves 9. Haste makes waste. And hence, when we come across Sefer Mishlei, connected to the word mashal, we tend to treat the Sefer merely as a collection of proverbs that were written to create guidance for society in its day. And therefore the translations for Mishlei 2021, for example, Nachala mevohelet barishona v'yacharita lo tevarech, we have translations options such as possessions acquired quickly at first, Nachala, will not be blessed in the end. Alternatively, an inheritance obtained too early in life is not a blessing in the end. There is, however, an alternative meaning to the term proverb, more in line with biblical texts such as Mishlei and Kohelet, that they are oracular utterances requiring interpretations. In other words, the telescoping of future events into the present. Texts that refer to Achret Hayamim, the end of days, are very much a form of Mishlei. And this is more in line with the concept of a mashal, a medium through which difficult and complex ideas can be presented to the population at large. And it will be in this context that Rashi offers a commentary to Mishlei 2021, that it is referring to a specific event in history to which a value judgment is made. Nachla muvohelet barishona, they were hasty in demanding their rights of inheritance, refers to, according to Rashi, drawn from the Medrash Tanchuma, to a situation in which the Bnei Gad or Bnei Reuven, shemiharu litul tchelkam, who were hasty in taking their allotment, be'ever hayardain, on the east side of the Jordan, v'dibru bebehala, they spoke with haste, with a degree of short-sightedness. And about them, the Bnei Gad or Bnei Reuven, we apply the consequence of their haste, that v'yacharita lo tevarech. In the end, they were not blessed. Haste made waste, in that they were the first 2 tribes to be exiled from Eretz Israel. The period of the Beit HaMikdash number 1 spanned 403 years. Construction was completed by Shlomo HaMelech in the year 2935. Its destruction by the Babylonians took place in the year 3338. The end, however, did not come suddenly, but rather took a period of 151 years, beginning with the armies of the Assyrian Empire, who conquered and then exiled the tribes on the east side of the Jordan, the tribes of Reuven and Gad, and a segment of Shevet Menashe that had joined them in Ever HaYarden. 8 years later there were further incursions, resulting in the expulsion of Zvulun and Naphtali, and 10 years later the entire northern kingdom that had broken away subsequent to the death of Shlomo HaMelech were carted off into exile. What was left were the tribes of the southern kingdom, Yehudah, that were able to survive for a further 133 years until the end came with the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. History is the study of events. It attempts to understand these events from the standpoint of the various forces at play, forces such as political, socio-economic, that impacted upon those events. Regarding the events recorded in Sifrei Nevi'im, books that focus upon the period of the first Beit HaMikdash, one can offer very logical and understandable explanations to the events that led up to its destruction. There were certainly geographical considerations, the ability to protect oneself from the enemy, and so on and so forth. One might argue that most vulnerable were the tribes on the east side of the Jordan, and hence they fell first to the armies of Assyria. The northern kingdom, better prepared for war, survived a further 10 years, and for whatever the reason, from a political or socio-economic perspective, the kingdom of Yehudah was able to survive for a much longer period of time. Theoretically, the subtext to the study of history is to learn from those events so as not to make the same mistakes made in earlier generations. And to a great extent, this exercise has brought about great improvement to the lives of mankind, especially in Western culture. This exercise, however, is a very different kettle of fish. Within the Jewish world, this exercise is referred to as Historia, and herein lies the confusion between this exercise and history, because Historia looks at these very same events and offers an interpretation for those events from the standpoint of a God-centered world. And more often than not, an attempt is then made to read those events back into the biblical texts. Texts such as Mishlei, in which, for example, the statement that V'yacharita lo tevarech is an oracular utterance, a premonition, a prophecy that requires interpretation. And that interpretation is understandably very subjective, very often depending on the agenda that the individual wishes to read into the text. In this case, the Medrash Tanchuma, paraphrased by Rashi's commentary to Mishlei 20:21, casts the actions of Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven in a negative light, and here again it's up to very subjective interpretations to what it was that was deemed to be negative. But whatever it was, V'yachrita lo tevarech, in the end they were not blessed, and herein comes the interpretation of history, Shegalu kama shanim kodem shar hashvatim, that they were sent into exile many years before the remainder of the Shvatim. Bulk of the northern kingdom survived a further 18 years. They were the first, however, to go into exile. And the Historia layer on historical events is that this came as a consequence of their haste in settling on the east side of the Jordan River.